Hi, my lovies. This is Christina with Converse Psychic LLC here on Universal Spirit Podcast. And today I have a guest, Mark Nakamp, who happens to be the author of the book Energy Work. Mark, could you introduce yourself and tell us all about yourself?
Sure, and thanks so much for having me. So
Yeah.
basically, I'm Mark Nakamp. I usually give or take the junior. My father's no longer on this plane of existence, so it doesn't really matter at this point. But I've been a magical practitioner for over 25 years. I have a pretty diverse background. I started with hoodoo, actually, where I grew
Oh,
up in the south side of Chicago. It was hoodoo candle making, the largest hoodoo candle maker in the Midwest, if not the country. And I first started learning hoodoo from an old African American gentleman named Goldfinger, who had one gold tooth. And also, forgive my voice. I'm just getting over a sickness. Um,
comes with spring always, right?
yeah, always. But Goldfinger was an amazing teacher. Um, and that was kind of my gateway to magic. Now, from there, I studied some grimoires. I started studying Tibetan Buddhism, which has a lot of
Mm.
magical stuff in it. I studied a lot of Hinduism. I almost became a monk at the Hare Krishna Temple in Chicago. Let's see. From there, I found a coven when I started working at a pagan shop in downstate Illinois. And from there, I really went into like energy healing, Reiki, ceremonial magic, chaos magic,
Mm.
and even a little bit of like a root of the Norse stuff.
That sounds amazing. Like, so it's been a part of your life just from the beginning.
Just about. And I could even go back to when I was a kid. Um, I could see spirits when I was a kid.
Oh.
My mom would always like, "Oh, there's nobody there." I'm like, "But mom, there's someone there." I mean, it was almost like that movie, The Sixth Sense, and like, I see dead
Uh-huh.
people. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it wasn't. I realized it wasn't just dead people. The departed I was seeing. It was like nature spirits or thought
Mhm.
forms or various other entities. But my grandmother, she also had a bit of a magical gift. She would have prophetic dreams. So what she would wake up and she said, "Uh-oh, I dreamt a fish. Who's pregnant?" And that was like kind of one of her things. And it was always kind of funny, but that was something I grew up in.
So, would you consider them to be your imaginary friends, or did you feel like you were the head of the group, or it was just like I have like these? If I didn't have real friends, right? I have some friends that you can't see. Was it something that you were comfortable with, or was it something that made you feel set apart?
It definitely made me feel set apart. And it was just something I kind of got used to. Also, it's really funny how the brain kind of copes with things. So I had a lot of when I was a kid, I my second sight was amazing. Like I could see all sorts of stuff. Now as an adult, I see a lot less, but to compensate, I hear things better. I can feel things way better. I'm a very hands-on practitioner, literally in terms of energy. I'll tell you a quick story. I was doing an exorcism at a friend's house, and this particular friend, they were living in a home that used to be a funeral parlor, and they bought the house. And I said, I was talking to my friend. I said, "Hey, you know what? You really want me to come clean that out, clean your house out for you?" They're like, "No, no, no, we're fine, we're fine." I said, "Oh, okay. I'll talk to you soon." Six
Yeah,
months
right.
go by. 6 months go by. They get some paranormal investigators to go in. Paranormal investigators start stirring stuff up. I said, "Hey, do you want me to come in?" Like, "Oh, no, no, we're fine." Eventually, I get a call at 1 in the morning from my friend's wife saying, "I think there's a spirit attached to my husband. Can you come help me right now?" I said, "You know what? I'll see you tomorrow," because I knew this was coming. And
Hmm.
um, and and what happened was, because my sight's not as good, what I can do is I can sense where a spirit is very very easily now. And I literally
Hmm.
I literally took the hand of the spirit of this young departed woman, and I literally held her by the hand and escorted her to a portal to like where that energy was supposed to go.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. So do you work with a lot of paranormal investigators, or are you all like your own paranormal
So
business? Or
that's actually a funny story, and you'll actually be the first person I tell
I,
publicly.
I'm interested. I love all that.
So about a month ago, I was thinking about the intersection of paranormal investigation and the occult for the simple reason that I've seen so many people that are paranormal investigators, but they're not magical practitioners. And that the
Mhm.
potential to open yourself up to something not so pleasant is very pressing. So I was thinking about, but different podcast ideas. And I reached out to this group in England called Crime and Paranormal. And they're like really like good-hearted people. They're really nice people. They're energetic. They're really fun to talk to. And so I reached out to the leader of their group, who, believe it or not, is just 18 years old.
Wow.
And we had a conversation. I said, hey, I'm a trained occultist. You've been training as a paranormal investigator. Let's kind of mix our, let's add our skills together. So you're the first person I'm actually telling this publicly. We're actually teaming up on their podcast. Me and my associate Nicole. So we're gonna have like the American version of Crime and Paranormal. Then there's the British
Okay.
version of Crime and
Right.
Paranormal. So it'll be a podcast, but I'll
Right.
go in using the paranormal standard paranormal investigation tools. But then I'm also gonna be able to use like psychic abilities, whatever's there. I'm gonna do an exorcism, and I'm actually doing a class with my British counterparts on how to do what I do, so that they're trained and they can handle anything nasty on their end.
Yeah. Wow. That's big. That's big. Because I definitely want to get into your book, Energy Work, because one of my questions was going to be down the road about you must know the secret as to why spirits like get stuck here, right?
I do.
And they haunt us, right? And
I do actually.
that's the answer that I want. That's the question I want answered because of all of my like experience. I'm just like, it's got to be something. I just can't figure out exactly what, right? So I mean, obviously, right? Got to keep on learning. So like, let's talk about what prompted the book, and
Sure.
then we can trickle down to that answer. Right, trickle down to answering that question.
Sure. So with the book, so obviously I've studied lots of different magical techniques and schools and modalities, and I've been initiated, of course, in like a few groups over the years. I don't like to name
Okay,
drop, and I don't title
that's
drop
fine.
because there's no point to it at this point. Um, but what's funny is looking at all the different schools of magic, I noticed that everything at the end of the day had an energetic result. So, for example, um, I can do long distance Reiki, and I noticed that if I did long distance Reiki on someone, it would have a very similar effect as if I did a candle for their healing. Like if I like put in the work to dress a candle and do healing magic for someone, it had pretty much the same effect. Okay.
Okay.
So I said, wow, that's pretty interesting. And then I was thinking about stuff such as, actually, I think I've told this story in the book. I was in the Southwest, and there was a friend of my mom's who was a victim of a magical attack. And of course, at first, I'm like, oh, are you sure you had a magical attack? And I kind of went through the symptoms. I said, well, are you feeling fatigue? Are you having weird accidents? Are people avoiding you? Are you having like any other negative things? You're like, oh, yeah, I'm having all that. And she really went on to talk about the bad things happening to her. So I said, all right, I'll check you out. So I had her on a massage table, and I checked her out energetically. And then lo and behold, I found this thing that was kind of like a magical like bullet lodged in her. It was more like it was probably about 18 inches long, had kind of a
Mhm.
sharpish end to it, and was lodged like in her aura, like pretty hardcore.
Mhm.
And I removed it, very carefully, of course. And I talk about these techniques on how to remove such things in the book, of course, um, under advanced healing magic. And I removed this projectile, and I was able to do what I call energetic forensics, and I could figure out, what the person looked like who did it, why they did
Right.
it, and all this other stuff. And because it used their energy, it was very simple for me to like kind of tap into it and then just do a return to sender on it.
Okay.
And I realized, of course, studying like, standard witchcraft practices,
Mhm.
people do return to sender stuff all the time. I just did it very hands on, but you can do literally the exact same thing, like with a candle or like a hoodoo uncrossing candle or something similar.
Right.
And so it really got in my head, wow, everything is energy. And everything started clicking into place. And like my energy healing background and my ceremonial magic background. And I said, look, when I'm doing magic and ritual, I'm raising energy and ritual, I'm manipulating energy. And it really comes down to energy. So I developed a practice that was more energy based. And that's what the book is. The book is like really a lot of my personal practice. But I realized there's a lot of, I will say, quote, broke ass pagans out there, end quote. And I'm and I feel that really, really, really hardcore because I've been in some, not so happy financial places myself. And there's been times where I couldn't afford a candle to do a damn thing. So part of the reason of doing energy magic is not only looking at this kind of non-denominational approach, if you will, to magic, but also making magic approachable to the average person,
Right.
regardless of financial circumstances,
Right.
regardless of their education. And everything really starts off small and basic in the book, and it gets more and more complex. I mean, I go from making a simple energy ball to energy healing to how to get possessed by a spirit or a deity. And I did this very much on purpose because when I was learning magic, I realized what made me a better practitioner than others is that I started off slow. My teachers started me off slow, and so I gained confidence. And
Okay.
one win built off the next win. And I wanted to do that for people reading my book. I wanted them to build confidence. And if they're having a bad day and they're like, "Wow, my magic didn't work," well, then they can go to exercise one, make an energy ball, and say, "Look, I can still make an energy ball. It doesn't mean I'm a bad practitioner. It just means I'm just going to have to like refine what I'm doing." And I'm not saying everything I'm teaching works for everyone 100% because everyone's a little different. Now, I worked really
Mhm.
hard to make things very approachable for everyone. But
Yes.
that being said, I'm just offering a set of tools, and I very much want everyone to experiment, and make them their own.
Yes. For sure. Um, that's amazing because the truth is, like, even when you were talking about everybody being in a different financial state, right? It'd be more like making it approachable and like making it feasible for anyone, right? And I'm not gonna lie, like it kind of triggered like the teenager in me because like all us teenagers, we were all broke, right? We were all
Mm-hmm.
broke as teenagers, at least I don't know the average teenager, and it was more like I wanted answers as to like how can I make good of a situation without any like physical means,
Right.
and I go back to my teenage years because I would say those were the years where I was the most negative, but at the same time those are the years where we have the most, I guess, concentrated energy because we're looking to explore different things. And they always say, oh, you're out with the bad crowd or you're going in the wrong direction.
Right.
But it's like when you're a teenager, you put so much force into whatever direction that you're in. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's really, it's possible that you can go down like the wrong path and stuff like that.
Sure.
And when you're in a position, right? When I was reading through it, I was just like, man, where was this when I was 17 and I was like, on the borderline of depression. You know what I mean? Like when I could just turn that around energetically and understand that my mind is like can make a choice to then even harness that energy for something else rather than doing something destructive. The
Exactly.
only reason I was also talking about my teenage years was also because I used to, okay, I can't get in trouble for it now because I'm 36. But I used to shoplift. Okay, I used to shoplift. Okay, all right, and it's my past, so I don't care what anyone says now.
Oh,
Right,
judge it.
but I used to be like, you know what? I don't have the money, but if I had the money, this is what I would spend the money on. So how about we just forget about the money altogether and just energetically get the outcome of the thing that I want? Like, right? Let's not shake a leg on the corner for some money. Let's just go, just like dip some stuff in our pocket real quick. And I felt as though that was my mini way of manifesting the thing that I needed. I know it sounds so like I know it's ghetto. I
You're
know,
fine.
but okay, but I thought that was like my first step to like spiritual alchemy, right? I was just kind of like, you know what, don't even give me the cash. Just give me the car. I'll work for you for about like, 6 months. Just I need a car to show up. Because that would be much what my salary for, would be for anyway. Right? It's kind of like, because if I get money, I might change my mind, I might forget, I might, get distracted, you know what I mean? Like just knowing
You're
my
fine.
energy is like I might as well just wait for the 6 months and then receive the real thing I want. But then it's almost like it kind of opens up like a secret door, as into like that's technically how manifestation works, right? In
Yeah,
general, right? You're
that's true.
disciplined enough to stay focused for like the 6 months, or even like what the 7 day candles or the 21 day baths, right?
Yep.
To manifest that disciplined energy. So my question for you
Sure.
is, how can your energy stay consistent to be disciplined enough? Because when you talk about outcomes in the beginning of the book, right? And distraction is very, very prevalent, especially if you live in the United States.
Mhm.
Okay, distractions are everywhere. We got billboards everywhere. We got drama everywhere. How do you keep your energy consistently focused
That's a
for
really
manifestation?
that's a really really good question. So, where to start? Well, excuse me. I guess let me start on a more mundane note. So, I if I showed you like my private files, you would see that I not only have a plan for like the rest of the year and like all the projects for the rest of the year, that I have literally mapped out all the books I'm going to write and all my projects, both nonfiction and fiction, because I'm working on some fiction as well. I have everything planned out, my goals, my education, what I'm writing, who I'm doing it with for the next 13 years.
Oh,
So if you said just for fun, give me a year between now and the next 13 years.
my
Give me a
math.
year.
Give me 2029.
2029. 2029, I'll be working on my master's in psychology. I'll be working on so I'll tell you this. So Energy Magic is actually a trilogy. Surprise, surprise.
Ah,
And you're actually the first person to know this, publicly. And so I'll be working on the third part of Energy Magic, which will be Energy Magic 3 Energy Rituals. So there'll be like personal group rituals with energy and expanding upon the ritual section in Energy Magic. Then I'll be working on a book on word magic and everything. It's called Word Magic, writing spells, bibliomancy, and sacred alphabets. Then I'll be working on part two of a two-part series. The first part is how to make friends with angels and influence people. But in 2029, I'll be working on how to make friends with demons and master yourself.
oh, I like
Then I'll be
that.
working on a book on neurodivergent magic, on how to do magic if you're neurodivergent, and some of the things. And not only if you're neurodivergent, but if you're teaching magic to people who are neurodivergent. Then I'm
Yes.
working on a book on pagan mysticism, and then I might be working on a book on constructing a personal spiritual path. There's another couple things I want to keep secret, but the other thing I can tell you is hopefully I'll be working on volume 3 of Voices of Our Pagan Elders. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then I've got another book in my young adult series I'm working on, three fiction books that are separate, and I might be working on a documentary. So,
Really?
and that's in 2029.
Yeah. But still, oh my God, people don't even plan out their week like that. It's so
Yeah,
crazy. I like that though. And I definitely love the fact that you are catering to the neurodivergent style of learning,
for
which,
sure.
as a collective and as as a community, or society, we are becoming more aware that there is, a specific, not specific, but more like there is a separate group that just learns differently, or,
Absolutely.
what is it, ingest information, just not the mundane way, I guess, right? We've known this for forever, but it's almost as if like we as a society are now catering to that a lot more, and seeing that more in everything that we do, right? Like books, and I'm even coming out with a tarot deck that is actually, catering more to neurodivergent people who are attracted to certain types of art, and they understand things differently. Please
Sure.
forgive me if I'm saying things wrong. Um, but their level, the level of understanding, is kind of becoming our understanding too. And I believe it's opening up even practitioners to, kind of like what you call the back rooms of magic,
Yes, I like that.
right? It's like there's other doors here too that lead to the
Um,
same road, but just like it's all choice, right? So it's kind of like it gives more choice. I wouldn't consider it to be a distractant. It's more like more of an openness,
yeah.
and that I really love that you are, very conscious of, the changing ways of teaching, right? Because everything is always going to change, but that's very advanced, and very open of you to do.
Thanks. Well, even with energy magic, you might notice, I mean, you've got a copy. You might notice that I try to make things approachable in terms of the senses, even. Like, I
Yes,
noticed that, like some people can see better, some people can hear
yes,
better. I have noticed that almost everyone can touch. Like, touch seems to be like the one sense that everyone is kind of like neutral on. So, a lot of
mhm.
the stuff is very literally hands on, but you can, of course, add on your other senses. And I try to like use the senses at different layers when I'm talking about exercises or even concepts in magic.
Well, yeah, because you mentioned earlier that when you had first started seeing spirits, right? You said you could see them better when you were a kid,
Right.
and now it's like more you hear them more now as an adult,
And feel them.
right?
So
Right, and feel them. So, I mean, did you drink the fluoride in school too?
I think I might have actually.
Yeah, because I think that has something to do with it, right? The pineal gland suppression,
Right, right, right.
right? So I'm just kind of like, I wonder if the people who didn't drink the fluoride could still see them. So, like just a thought, because everybody and their mother is wondering, like, did that fluoride actually change something? I wonder how far along I would be now if I hadn't drank it. So,
I'll
but yes,
actually
I
talk about
did.
in the sequel to Energy Magic. I'll probably put some exercises like more like a chakra workout and like kind of like work out
Mhm.
a little bit more and things like that. So
It's like, is that why we get PTSD when we rinse Listerine, when we're brushing our teeth? Like
I don't know,
we get
maybe.
that PTSD. We're just like, oh no, my memory's gonna get erased. So just saying, like I just haven't noticed that they taste the same.
Oh yeah.
I used to see stuff too. I'm just kind of like, it was there. I promise you, it was there, right? So, but yes, sorry, I didn't mean to like just go off
No, you're
the,
fine.
but yeah, that has been a really like jarring question for years. Okay, I just figured you were able to answer it. But just keep that in mind, people who are listening, that if you drink the fluoride, I'm pretty sure you'd be able to see more than you do. And if you still do, that's a very strong power you have. Just letting you know.
Mhm.
I also wanted to get into, um, I think it was exercise 3 with grounding.
Yes.
I think that also includes what you were talking about the senses.
Yes.
And I was telling you earlier that, uh, my ego gets in the way of grounding,
Mhm.
right? And we are on this lifelong journey to battle the ego,
Absolutely.
because the grounding part makes me feel small, and I know that the ego is affecting my energy when I'm trying
Mhm.
to do it. So
Absolutely.
I want to know what your thoughts are, and have you ever like had anybody encounter the same, uh, you know, blockage?
Sure. Sure. Well, let me kind of go back to something else you asked about, because it kind of connects. You're talking about my energy. So in the book, there's exercises on cycling your energy between heaven and earth. And that's something that
Mm-hmm.
actually comes directly from my Reiki master, Sean Clark, who's no longer with us. And he was always very adamant about cycling your energy. And what that does is you're really, if I want to talk about magic in terms of this one major duality everyone talks about, everyone talks about this: as above, so below.
So below, right?
But that means a couple different things. But what I want to stay relevant to, because speaking of neurodivergence, I have ADHD, and I'll go in a rabbit hole if I'm not careful. But the relevant thing here is that there's the energy of the heavens, of like pure spirit, and then there's the energy of manifestation, here on like the most concrete material plane.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of thinking of it as a duality, I encourage everyone to think of it more like a spectrum, just like there's a spectrum of light from like white light to dark.
Right. Okay.
Similar way, you can see that in, of course, like the chakras, in
Right.
the Kabbalistic tree of life, even in the nine
Right.
Norse realms. So there's this, we can talk about the spectrum between spirit and matter, right? Okay.
Right.
So when we're cycling energy, we're really connecting to the universe in a very holistic manner. And as above, so below also means that, not to get all biblical, but that we are created in, quote, God's image. In that
Mm-hmm.
sense, we are the microcosm. We are reflections of the universe herself.
Right.
So by cycling our energy, we mimic the process of creation. And this kind of goes into one of the major definitions of magic that I really like to talk about. That's not just the art of changing consciousness at will, like Crowley would say, but it's about being co-creators with the universe. So by
Okay. Right.
cycling my energy, I'm connecting to the universe, and I'm staying not only grounded, but I'm staying centered in the fact that I'm this kind of intermediary between, and all of us are, between like spirit and matter, and that we have this place in
Right.
the spectrum. Now, forgive my ADHD. What was the last question?
So how would like ego get in the way
Ah,
of getting your energy to keeping it consistent?
right. So the thing that so I've had a lot of mystical experiences. So I'm talking about this spectrum between earth and heaven, and kind of going back to heaven and earth, right? So when here we are on earth, you and I, and as we do different mystical practices or meditation or even magic, we have to get more and more spiritual. Okay. And these experiences naturally act as a ladder. There's this very natural progression of energy that goes from earth to heaven. We can talk about this like in a chakra system. They talk about that all the time, that there's this energetic current, this current of
Mm-hmm.
liberation. Okay. So magical practice leads us there, and eventually we'll have these experiences of connection with spirits, or connection with the gods, or to really, really go all the way to the top, connection with everything. And
Right.
at the very top, and this is where you get like flashes of enlightenment. We're talking about, like, what Buddha or Jesus experienced. I mean, everyone can do that. I mean, even Jesus said, hey, hold on. I'm cool, but all of you can do what I'm doing, if not more so. So in
Right.
that sense, we can all have those same mystical experiences. And I think we should in fact pursue them, because when we get to the top of the mountain, metaphorically, there's no difference between you and me and the rivers and the air and Joe Biden and Donald Trump and the homeless person down the street and the witch who's stirring a cauldron. There's no difference between anyone when you get to those highest senses, because
Right.
we're connecting to source, and we all came from the same source. And when we have
Right.
these experiences, we go back to that intrinsic connection. And isn't that what we're all really going for? That's why we all feel isolated sometimes. All
Yeah.
of us kind of feel, God, I wish I could go home to a home I've never gone home to. And what that is a spiritual longing. And that really plays out in that current of liberation. Now, the opposite of that is you get to the top of the mountain, can't live at the top of the mountain. Gods, do I wish I could live at the top of the mountain sometimes, but I can't.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, when I come going down, I'm going down the path of manifestation. Now, this is where we really talk about this. This current is really more used in the West, because let's say I have a mystical experience with God and I say, wow, how do I live my life knowing that everything's connected? And how do I live my life in the most, godly manner? God, you know what? I think I'll get some stone tablets and write down my mystical experiences. Wait a minute, Moses. Slow down there, brother. And every religion, you'll have a mystic. Every religion is founded by someone who had a mystical experience, and they're trying to basically codify or, write down those experiences in a way to share them in their descent from heaven to earth.
Okay.
So where this goes with ego, we all have, in cycling our energy, in grounding, in meditation, just in being good people, everything should lead us to everything will lead us eventually to an experience of egolessness and ego death. The trick is to acknowledge them and then just keep on going, to put everything on the same playing field. Go ahead and be enlightened. Go ahead and talk to angels, talk to the dead, do some crazy magic to save the world. But then you're going to have to do the dishes later. You're going to have to do the laundry. So we all have to remember, everything has to be on the same playing field eventually, energetically. There has to be balance and harmony.
No, I like that. I actually like that. I've never really thought of it that way. I never thought of it that way, because it's almost as if spirit would seem superhuman, or then the human would seem very small and unimportant, where it's like our brains are taught the opposite. We're taught that the physical is more important and the spirit is not that important. But it's the spirit is always trying to leave the body. No, we can do this. We can go here. We can do this and this and that. And it's no, but I got to iron these clothes. And you're just okay, that's fine. We can do that. Right. But it's we also, right, we can speak to angels later. We're not really alone. We just have to, finish this task. I love how you put that, because now I have opened up another back room to my spirituality. So now it's just kind of yes, and not really fight anymore with self. So that above and so below thing really is a spectrum. Now I see it as a spectrum. Now that was a really good way of putting it. Slightly ungrateful, right? If I were to get my ego involved and keep me from, really feeling and being present in the moment with what I'm trying to achieve, because I feel so small and I'm focusing on feeling small instead of the greater idea at hand, or the greater thing that I'm trying to achieve, right? Because ego is sneaky like that, right? Ego is kind of saying you don't have to be doing this. We're too good for this, or, we're not small. We got to go do something now to make ourselves feel like we're important. This not makes us feel important, and it really is that little red devil on your shoulder where it's kind of why are we doing this anyway? If you were such a good this and that, we wouldn't have to do this, kind of thing where you, go ahead.
Well, I'd like to give you kind of a different view on ego. So I'd like to more connect ego to survival instinct. So, for example, if everything's in balance, your survival instinct and your instinct to help others and your instinct to be spiritual, ideally those are all in balance. But our society doesn't teach us to have that balance. So our survival instinct, our animal brain kind of hijacks everything. Whether it's, you'll see people very greedy, but isn't greed just your animal brain telling you that you don't have enough?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really what ego is. It's identifying with the physical and having that natural instinct for survival just going way out of control and way out of proportion to the rest of one's life.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, okay. All right, I learned something new. I just thought that was just life. right? They teach us that's just life, right? That's interesting too. I know. I'm 36. I'm learning things that I should have known already. But I want to say though, like I said earlier, in regards to reading the book, I feel like I'm reading it with someone.
Yes.
Right? I feel like, there's a presence there, as if the book itself is alive, right? Like I feel like, it's not like I'm not reading it. It's almost like it's physically speaking to me. Like it
Sure.
has its own life. Like what did you do to all these books, right? Did you like, put your hand on and pray on all of these books? Is that what you did? Just bless every
Not
single page.
not quite. So what I did is so long years and years ago, I used to be a professional tarot reader, and I no longer do readings for clients for various reasons. That could be a whole separate podcast episode.
Yes, it can.
But one time, a friend gave me the copy of Crowley's Thoth Tarot, the Thoth or Thoth, however you want to pronounce it. And I was doing a reading, and all of a sudden, I heard this voice in the back of my head, clear as day, said, "You're doing it wrong." And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I realized that Crowley had put a part of his energy into the cards, into the egregore of the cards. So just to give a quick magic lesson, anytime there's an object or an organization or a ritual, it through repetition, it has its own energy. Okay. But these energies can also get semi-alive. And so these are like called egregores, but you can also create them on your own. And I talk about this in the book. You can create artificial spirits to do different things, and they're kind of like living spells.
Yes.
So keep that in mind. Now, the other thing I want to piggyback that onto is that we're very multidimensional. I do talk about this in the book as well, that we have a physical aspect, a energetic or astral aspect, which are really the same thing, which is some people might debate me with, but I'll happily debate you. Another part is your mental or consciousness. You have physical, energetic, mental or / consciousness, and then pure spirit. And these connect to different parts of the self: your physical body, your energetic body, your consciousness, and of course your soul. Okay. So there's a fourfold part of the self always. And that coordinates, of course, to a 4-part aspect of the universe herself. Okay. So all that being said, what that really breaks down to is that we not only need to be aware of that, but question, did I put a part of myself in the book? So what I did was I literally put part of my energetic self, part of my astral self, I fractioned off a piece of it.
Okay. Not a problem. Hold on. I think mine is acting up too.
Okay.
All right. I got you back.
Okay. So as I was saying, with all that being said about the different parts of the self, as I was writing the book, I was taking a part of my energetic body and put it into the work itself. So you are literally having a conversation with me when you're reading the book. Now, if the book really works energetically the way it's supposed to, if you're actually having a problem or you have a question, the book actually will help you with things as well, because it's like a little mini maze in the books. Long story short, a piece of my energetic self was woven into the books as I wrote it.
Okay, yes. Okay, so I do see that it is just as easy to talk to you just as it's easy to read the book too.
Exactly.
Okay, so okay, good. Yeah, that's the authenticity that I would assume would be in a lot of magical books that I've read, but unfortunately, a lot of them were cliched, right? And a lot of them were very lackluster, and you kind of feel like you're just reading off a script. You're just like, I've heard this somewhere before. Why did this have to be another book? Right. You know what I mean? My other question to you, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was going to ask you when it comes to these times now. I would say because mostly, I would say the whole world at this point, are we in like, energetic jeopardy, right? Because we're all divided at this point, or do we look at it as all divided, or should we be seeing this as a good thing, or is what is appearing to us just the face value of the negativity in the world happening. Now I know I'm never going to ask anybody to get political ever, right? But what I ask is like, could we be more conscious, right, to almost like shove this energy that we're having in the world into a more positive, and if so, like how could we do that? Because remember I mentioned like these distractions, egos, and all those kinds of things, and I do know it's hard to get people to agree with each other or even get along with each other, right?
Absolutely.
But I know, like you said before, we're all connected, we're all on the same consciousness, so to speak, right? Or and what would unify you know us as a collective, as a species, really? You know what I mean? Like if there was no money involved, right? If there was no, like, having to survive stuff, how would we get along just as a species energetically? I hope this wasn't too many questions for one question. Right? Like, how
You're
could we
fine.
all just get along energetically, right? Because I know you would have a snippet, if not more, of the answer. Because
Sure.
I would always try to look for an answer for this.
Absolutely. So it's kind of funny. So I took a class, and this isn't going to surprise you. I took a couple classes on Islam a while ago because I like to
Hmm.
study. I like to study the world's religions just as
Of
much as I
course,
like to
yep,
study magic. And of course, every religion has a magical school to it.
yes,
So I
yes,
was
they
studying
do.
a lot of Islamic magic at the time, not just stuff with jinns, but like Quranic magic and um, some of the stuff from like the region of the Middle East. It's actually called what is it called, like Rouhani, I believe. And there's like
Hmm.
a Rouhani school of magic. Um, anyway, the Quran says something really interesting, and which always stuck with me. And I can't remember the Arabic because my Arabic sucks. My Latin's a lot better though. But the idea was you can either take a step towards God or a step away from God. Those are the only two decisions,
Okay.
the only decision a human can make. And I thought about that for years, and it just kind of stuck in the back of my head, kind of like a pet, like almost like the Princess and the Pea. This was like my pea
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
bothering me. And I came to the realization after having several mystical experiences that once we have that connection to everything, we have a very, very simple choice that all at every action we do either is a step towards connecting towards the universe and each other or a step away. And so that's the way I
Okay.
look at it. Is I look at how can I connect to people? How can I connect to the parts of myself? How can I connect to the gods? How can I connect to nature? And that's really what separates earth-centered spirituality and paganism and all the different like pagan spiritual paths from more of the monotheistic ones. It's one, we don't really have this duality between heaven and earth. It's more pantheistic. It's more everything is
Yeah.
everything is holy, everything is sacred, and as such everything is connected. So I think, and this is why part of the reason I have like this mad 13-year plan to write. I got, how many books is it now? I can tell you it's a lot. But in
I was
13
gonna say
years,
I got about seven so far.
in 13 years, I've got about 155 books or projects, and most of them are books. Some of them are plays, comic books, short story collections, fiction, things like that. But the majority are spiritual, and several of them are co-authored with people. And I'm co-authoring a lot of books because I want to lead by example. Because
Mhm.
for example, I'm writing a book on mediumship with someone who's been a medium for several years and who's been part of like the spiritualist church. And I come at like mediumship and spirit communication more through an occult, point of view.
Right.
And everybody and their mom at this point has written a book on how to talk to the dead. Okay. It's not
Mm-hmm.
special anymore. And I'm not saying the people that have books out there aren't good. There's a lot of really good books out there that gods I wish I had when I was younger. But
Right.
this goes back to the question too. I'm co-writing a book with someone who has a different perspective on mediumship because their perspective plus mine makes our knowledge stronger together.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So I'm co-authoring a lot of different books over the years, not only to like fill in my gaps, but also to show that it doesn't have to be about me. I don't have to be the grand poobah of this branch of
Right.
magic or this subject. I can poke at somebody, I can annoy somebody, but if I take my 5 fingers together and make a fist, I can do some damage.
Right.
In the same way, the more nature teaches us so much, and nature
Yes.
teaches us that diversity is a strength. And the more diverse something is, the stronger it is, the more it'll survive, and the more viable it is. Okay. And even I would argue the more beautiful it is.
Yes.
So all that being said, I really want to take away ego from as much as possible from stuff I'm doing. And just to go on my soapbox, this is also why 10% of all my book royalties are donated to a nonprofit I created, with half of those going directly towards women, because I'll just be frank, I'm writing mostly towards the witchcraft market and the pagan market, and the occult market, and the majority of people are women. So I felt kind of like a jerk if I'm not trying to give back to my audience.
Right.
Also, I'll just be frank, when I was younger, I made some really bad relationship choices, and I don't want to talk about their side of the story because that's their story to tell. But I did some things I'm not proud of, and so I'm trying to make amends. I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to apologize
Right.
the best way I can, and so I'm giving half of so I'm giving 10% of my royalties to my nonprofit. Half of that directly goes to like the Medusa Fund, which is for like women's
Right.
shelters and women's circles and things like that. Now, the other half is going to like a National Pagan Scholarship and um, a pagan suicide prevention line and things like that. But I really want to make the work I do, I want my legacy to be we can succeed and thrive, be as egoless as possible, and still help each other. And we don't have to cannibalize each other. Like how many, I'm just going
Right.
to go there. How many people you see on like pagan and occult groups who are like, can I give you a reading? I'm trying to do a reading here, but there's a wider audience. Okay. And this is going to go
Mm-hmm.
back. We don't need to cannibalize each other. We can give our gifts to the more mainstream audience. And this is why I'm really thankful that magic and witchcraft are becoming more mainstream. Now,
Yes.
to kind of go back to the subject of like, how can we change the world and how can we balance everything out? The dirty little secret that everyone doesn't want to talk about is everybody can do magic. Okay.
Right.
So, someone goes on a forum and you're on the internet and you make a comment and, some other person who's in a more negative headspace makes a comment and you're like, wow, I feel kind of crappy after talking with this person who made a negative comment. Well, more than likely, you were magically attacked. Now, they didn't light a candle or like talk to some gods or demons or angels and said, I hope Mark has a bad day. It was pure instinct. Okay.
Right.
Going back to what I said earlier in this podcast, everything has an energetic result, everything has an energetic consequence. So, that being said, almost every human being is doing random acts of magic by blind emotion and hurting
Yeah.
themselves and in the world. I liken it to a pool. Like you're in a pool with a group of kids. We're all kids, right? We're all children of the universe. So we're all kids in the pool, and the pool is our collective environment, our energetic environment. And you know what? There's just some people who just can't stop pissing in the damn pool,
Right.
whether they're doing it on purpose, and they might be talking to you right in the face and pissing in the dang pool, and they're not even realize they're pissing in the dang pool. And that's why I want to make magic very accessible, because then someone could say, oh, Jesus, I've been pissing in the pool and I'm really sorry. Let me make things better.
Right.
Let me actually try to clean my mess up. Let me take some responsibility. But people can't take responsibility for things they don't know. That's not fair.
Right.
So that's why I want to make magic accessible. I want to, I've got some book projects in the background. They're not even aimed at pagans or occultists. I'm aiming at the mainstream for the simple reason I want to like help them connect the dots, and I want them to like be more aware. And if we can be more aware spiritually, even on the basis sense that we're all spiritually connected, well, I'll die really happy because I'll know that at least one spiritual truth out of many, that one spiritual truth, if I can disseminate and popularize it, that might change the world a little bit. And the other thing is, kind of take it back to politics. I am completely fed up with politics. And
yeah.
I'll tell you, and I'll just give you some background. So I'm biracial, and my Black grandmother, her mom died when she was young, and her dad couldn't raise her for various reasons. So my little Black grandmother, who's the sweetest person on the planet, she became the live-in housekeeper and babysitter for a Jewish family. Okay. So we got this like 15-year-old Black girl in Chicago working for a Jewish family. And so as a result, growing up, like my grandmother basically raised me. I didn't know if I was getting collard greens and red beans and rice, or if I was getting matzo ball soup and potato pancakes. I had no damn clue. Okay.
Right.
So she grew up very conservative. Okay. My mom was very liberal. And, we grew up Catholic, and Catholics are typically more conservative. So I rebelled and I became very, very liberal. And even now I'm more liberal than I'm more liberal than anything if I have to make a title. Now, all that being said, I have relatives. I have very few relatives. Most of my family's dead, but I have a few relatives that are more conservative. They're more are more conservative than I am. And then I have friends who are very, very conservative. I have friends who are very, very liberal. And, I've gone to protests. I protested war. I protested for women's rights. And I've protested for everything you can imagine, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I look at all these political debates, and at this point, my heart just breaks. Because what happens is every side is other the other. So, as a liberal, I want to go to the conservatives and say, well, you need to acknowledge this marginalized group in the name of democracy so that we can all be connected. Of course, this connects to stuff like Black Lives Matter, or, that trans rights matter and things like that. But I've noticed, and I've done it, and I'm not speaking from a high horse or an ivory tower. Please don't take me the wrong way. Mm-hmm. What I notice in my personal life is in my effort to make conservatives more aware of liberal things that mattered, I have othered them. I have villainized them. I have made them the enemy. And as such, I've gone against my spiritual values that we're all spiritually connected. So to kind of go back, liberals, conservatives, Democrats, Republicans, independents, whether you're Black, green, red, whether you've got 3 husbands or 2 wives or 50 kids, I don't care. The point being that we're all connected, and that all of us on all sides have to quit thinking of us as just solely within our labels, within solely as our populations. We have to quit othering people, because if we other people, we've lost. We've already lost the battle if we view someone as our enemy. We have to view them as our brother and sister, or to be gender neutral, I apologize, we have to view them as our spiritual siblings. Because if we don't, we're only going to make the world a worse place. And this is the source of all these polarizations and why everything has gotten worse and worse over the years.
I totally agree with that. Not only that, I like how, you are very passionate, and you're very authentic with your stand on this. You're authentic with the whole that we are just connected thing. So it's kind of like one loose screw affects the other half, or one leaning to one side is going to mess up the other side, because it's all cause and effect. And you're passionate about it, is definitely reflected in your book for sure. That's why I said I feel like someone is just like reading with me. And I do get that sense in the way that it's written too. I could almost guess after listening to all that, that this was the book that you needed when you were, you know, on your, like the beginning of your journey. And I think that's amazing how you can write that way, whereas like you do have your, your old self in mind, where it's kind of like, hey, it's not going to be all, this and that. Let me show you something else, before someone else makes that same, mistake that I made, or, I made, personally, whatever, and the fact that, you do have this, this positive outlook on us being, being one, right? To me, if more people were to read this book, it would be a very positive and very positively infectious. How about that? Right? It's kind of just like, it's kind of like, wow, like we really are connected. That really does make a difference. Things that you don't think make a difference. When people show up to things, it makes a difference. When people don't show up to things, it makes a difference. It's like, like even something as small as that, like you don't show up to a job interview, well, you ain't getting that job. Okay, you do show up, it becomes 50-50 at that point, right? So
Exactly.
you've moved the energy, you have had a footprint in that particular situation.
Yeah.
And I do agree with you when people do try to other you know everybody else, because the truth is, like, I think spiritually most people are unaware, right? I recently became aware of this a little over 10 years ago, that we are just spiritually holding hands with each other all the time, all the time. And our anger and even our love can be felt, you know, universally, everything could be felt. So I believe that if we had more, um, what is it? Just control, right? And more understanding of our conscious choices on how to, you know, enforce that energy, it would in fact be very positively infectious. And we probably most likely, if not indefinitely, have the problems that we have today. Like this is very inspiring for the next generation, especially like you were saying that the, paganism and Wiccan and, the spiritual community is becoming more popular. It's becoming more mainstream, right? Because I'm gonna tell you right now, like it's gonna take a while for it to get into schools, because they're talking about bring prayer back into schools, and I make those Facebook memes about kids sitting in a circle, wearing black robes and stuff. Like, you mean everybody prays in school, right? But it is going to become a thing where, maybe even 100 years from now, someone is going to have someone, no, I mean like 100 years from now, someone would have read your book,
Oh,
right? And then they would have been like, I'm now more conscious of my energy. So now I'm very aware of putting up certain boundaries of people who are not focused on being positive or focused on being, progressive. I know I'm just like literally exhausting the whole thing. Okay. But, that's why I wanted to speak with you, because I cater to a younger audience as well, like upcoming people who are either experimenting with religion or on their way out of religion, and this happens mentally at a younger age, right? So that's why I always want to meet with people who have that I am speaking to my younger self
mhm.
type of energy. So, any questions for me before, or did you want like a last statement of something, like this, something you wanted to say before we wrap this up?
Um, a couple things actually. So
Okay.
if okay, so the book is obviously available on like Amazon. The book is Energy Magic. Obviously it's available on like Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And I'm actually going to do a marketing push to like a lot of different pagan and occult and spiritual stores to try to have them carry my book. That being said, if my book is not at a place that you regularly go to, I'm kind of speaking directly to your listeners, let me know or let them know. If you go to my website, it's marknicampjr.com/books. I talk about how any local pagan, occult, or spiritual store can, what wholesalers they can go through, make the book very accessible. So there's that. Also, I realized one of the people that I really admire in the occult community is Damien Eccles. Now, if you don't know, Damien Eccles was unjustly imprisoned for quote unquote being a Satanist, and he wasn't. He was. It's a whole long story, but I realized literally just a few weeks ago, like holy cow! I wrote a book on magic, on energy magic, and you don't have to use tools. Who else can't use tools? Prisoners. So if I would say, if you know someone who's incarcerated, who's into magic and the occult, this is the best book for them. You can't get the book and send it to them. You have to get their information and send it directly from Amazon. But if you can't afford it and you know someone in prison who could benefit from my book, let me know. Go to my website. My information is very accessible, and I'll personally send a copy to someone. So
that's amazing. I never thought of that. That is true. That's a great audience.
Also, to make the book even more accessible, I've read so many books on paganism, magic, and the occult, and I've been very fortunate that I've gone to a lot of conferences, and I've met a lot of my heroes. I've met Oberon Zell. Oberon did a endorsement for my book, and if you don't know who Oberon Zell is, research Oberon Zell. He is the nicest, funkiest, unique person you ever meet. I've met people obviously Selena Fox or Dorothy Morrison, and I've met all these people, and they're amazing people, and I love them to pieces, and I have nothing but love and respect for them. So all that being said, as I'm writing, I have my book out, I want to be more approachable, because there's been times I just want to say, man, Dorothy, I love this book, but I had this question on page 35. I wish I could just pick up the phone and call Dorothy now. Obviously, I'm not going to do that. Because Dorothy would be like, come on, Mark, give me some forewarning. Or I'm not picking on her. I mean, just like anybody would, right? I mean, you don't want I'm crazy. I mean, if you want to call me randomly, I'll probably pick up the phone because I'm that person. But not everyone has different boundaries, right? And we got to respect everyone's boundaries. So to respect my boundaries, but to make myself accessible, I'm doing a book club for the book. So the first book club starts in June. And that's going to take place on weeknights. The next book club is going to be on weekends. And so it's basically, we go by the book chapter by chapter. So you go to my website, there's information on the book clubs. It's on, I have a paid Zoom account, so you don't have to pay anything. So just hop on the Zoom. The links for the Zoom are already on my website. So when the time comes, just come on the Zoom call, talk about the book. Now, of course, I want you to buy my book because, and I'm going to be frank, writing pagan books and occult books is not my sole source of income. My sole source of income is I do sales and marketing. So I have a mundane job. So I don't need my book money, but money's nice. And so I want people to buy my book. And obviously 10% of my books, of my royalties are going to, charity to help the greater pagan and spiritual community. So buy the book for that. And I also believe in, got to give energy for energy to some degree. But that being said, if you are a poor, quote, broke ass pagan, end quote, you can't afford my book, reach out to me. I'll work something out with you. Okay. And I want my book to be accessible. I want people to use these tools. A lot of the inspiration for this book was also, I know all this stuff. I want to get it out of my head so I could learn other stuff. So a lot of my book projects, some of them are stuff that I know really, really well. Some of it is stuff I don't know that well, but I know enough to be dangerous. So in researching and writing and developing techniques for a lot of my other book projects, it's almost like I'm taking a master's level course in that subject. And the book is my capstone project. So, So that in mind, I wrote this book just to get it out of my head so I can work on other stuff too and learn and grow on my own. Um, and yeah, so come on the book, get the book. I'm very approachable. The book is very accessible. If anybody has any questions, just come reach out to me. I'm here for you. But a lot of these tools are stuff I developed and stuff I learned, and they really helped me unscrew my life and really helped me get on a better place. So I hope that I can do the same for someone else.
And that's amazing. And I definitely encourage everyone to purchase the book as well. I'm really enjoying it. As seasoned as I am, I'm still reading things that I didn't know, and it definitely keeps me more conscious about how I use my energy, and how we keep it protected and safe. Just I would definitely recommend it. It's a good read. And like I said, I love the way it's written. I feel like someone is with me, just really, holding my hands mostly, right? Because when you're learning something new, that's what you need, right? So I definitely encourage you guys to definitely purchase the book as well. So I thank you, Mark, for coming on my podcast. I really appreciate it. It was very nice having you.
Thank you so much for having me. This has really been a pleasure, and I love the work that you do, and just keep on shining and keep on doing what you're doing because you yourself are doing some really amazing work.
Thank you. I'm definitely trying. I'm not trying to stay in one lane. I'm trying to hold hands with pretty much everyone. I want to know everybody's story, right? Because I'm not always likable, right? So, but I know the people that I picked to come on my podcast are a lot more likable than I am, and very, 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 uh, gifted at what they do and masters of their craft. All right. So again, this is Christina with Karma's Eye Psychic LLC here on Universal Spirit Podcast. Thank you, Mark, for being on today. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Okay.